For your consideration, the 1994 movie Airheads is actually an educational film. It taught us that drummers can actually score with the ladies, hot sauce can be weaponized, and that all you need is a good song and a bad plan to make your dreams come true. You know, for an educational movie, Airheads, it's not that bad. Welcome to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks at A grades in B movies. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're ready for a doozy because we are talking 1994's Airheads. And joining me today is my wife, Carrie, who has returned from her exile after saying that she preferred Masters of the Universe over Star Wars. Carrie, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am doing so well, and I am so super stoked to talk about this movie. Rock on!
Now, okay, I have to point out, okay, avid listener Anthony, also known as Monkey Noodles out there, almost lost his ish when he heard that the whole you like Masters of the Universe over Star Wars thing. But he said you're cool, so it's okay. So you're allowed to come back. So first of all,
thank you.
Thank you, Monkey Noodles, for actually listening in and all that. So we allowed Carrie to come back because she is pretty damn awesome. I may be biased, but I don't care.
Let's see if I can break the internet again. That's my goal.
Well, you're the one who picked Airheads. So explain to us why you picked this movie.
Why would I not? I love this movie. I love it. I love it. There is nothing that I don't love about it, and there's so much I want to say, but let's get started.
Okay, so before we get started, you know what we have to do? It's time. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you, Carrie, and I want you to take your script there and trailerize it.
3 aspiring rock musicians determined to have their band's demo tape played on the air sneak into a Los Angeles radio station. But when that doesn't work, all hell breaks loose. The amps are on, but nobody's home, and their only defense may be that the music made them do it. Blame it all on the love of rock and roll. Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler star in Airheads, rated PG-13.
Okay, first of all, it's an Adam Sandler movie and rated PG-13, so we're already going to have to take a stretch as to what's not bad because of that. Admittedly, Adam Sandler has, as of late, been a little bit more than PG-13, but we'll let him go because this is 1994. So let's kind of go through the list of who's in this movie just to start with. We mentioned Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler is your band. They are the Lone Rangers. But the list of people, the notable people in this movie is insane. Let me run just a quick rundown of the list here. Michael Richards, so Kramer, right? Chris Farley, Michael McKean, Judd Nelson, Ernie Hudson, Joe Mantegna, Reg E. Cathy, a very young and very blonde David Arquette, Harold Ramis, like the list is insane in this movie. Now, here's the interesting thing though, is that when you take a look at who could have starred in it, it would have been a very different movie. Okay. So according to IMDb, okay, the role of Chaz, Brendan Fraser, was supposed to be played by John Cusack, which I don't know. I just can't picture John Cusack in this role.
Nope.
I mean, he was great in High Fidelity. You know, you think about like late 80s, early 90s films that John Cusack could do no wrong, but I think he would have done wrong in this role. And then there was Kayla, as played by Amy Locane, but it was apparently was supposed to be played by Christina Applegate. And that one actually made sense to me.
Totally. However, this is not the first time that these two have hooked up.
Brendan Fraser and Amy Locane, yeah.
Right. In the 1992 School Ties, they were a couple as well.
Very different movie, by the way. School Ties and Airheads, two way different movies.
I can only hope she wasn't that batshit crazy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Christina Applegate in that role would have been phenomenal, but to the same token as well, it almost would have been the same role as on Married with Children. So maybe it's a good thing she didn't go because it'd be a little bit typecast. But yeah, batshit crazy, I think, is the gentlest way of describing.
That would have been a trip to the principal's office for sure.
Now, it was directed by Michael Lehman. I hope I pronounced that right, Michael Lehman. And if the name sounds familiar as far as directors go, that's because he also directed Hudson Hawk, which starred Bruce Willis, 40 Days and 40 Nights, and Heathers. So if you, because I know you like your Christian Slater movies, so Heathers is on that list, but it was almost directed by Alexander Rockwell. You'll know him best because he was the guy that directed the wrong man part of Four Rooms.
Right. But as well, what's really, really cool about Michael Lehman is that in 1994, he was also slated to have directed Ed Wood, Johnny Depp's Ed Wood. And he had passed that off to Tim Burton so he could stay with the Airheads project. Now, to put that into perspective, he actually passed up a movie that had like a 92% tomato meter rating, an 88% audience score for this wonderful film that we're about to dive deep into.
You know what's funny, though? And maybe it's just me. We talked about how it was probably better for Christina Applegate to not take this role so it's not typecasting. I don't know if Ed Wood have been as good as it was or well received as it was if Michael Lehman took that directing job. To the same token as well, let's reverse it. Tim Burton would have fucked this movie up so bad. If Tim Burton made Airheads, I don't think we'd be sitting here saying, no, Airheads is not that bad, because Airheads is a good movie, and I think it's better handled by a Michael Lehman. Ed Wood needed to be directed by Tim Burton. So, as the Hollywood gods had it, each movie got the director I think it probably needed. One of the cool things about this film is where it was filmed. Not just LA, but it was filmed at Fox Plaza, and I'm fighting back my wanting to
Nakatomi Plaza.
Nakatomi Plaza. Now, not the actual building that was Nakatomi Plaza, but like there's a little building kind of like across the parking lot from the quote unquote Nakatomi Plaza, and that's where that was. So, if you're having a sense of wanting to scream out 9-9, because of course, they just love that freaking movie. Yes, it was filmed at Fox Plaza, which is also known as the Nakatomi Tower. In the box office, it grossed just over $5 million at the box office, which, of course, in 1994, not that bad. But let's put it into perspective here. When it debuted, on August 5th, 1994, it debuted at number 10, made $1.9 million. Respectable debut at number 10. It was not going to knock off the other big debut that weekend, which was Clear and Present Danger. That was the Tom Clancy series. That's when Harrison Ford was still part of Clear and Present Danger. So that debuted at number 1, and that made $20 million. But at number 4 on the box office, debuting that weekend, was The Little Rascals. If you remember, like they brought all these kids together and they made the Little Rascals movie. That made $10 million, debuting at number 4. So, not even the only other debuting movie, and it slipped in at number 10. But for perspective, okay, we're going to put Clear and Present Danger aside because that is what it is, and it's an entirely different genre of film. Currently, on Rotten Tomatoes, Airheads has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 23% tomato meter and a 50% audience score. So respectable as far as an audience score, but a crappy tomato meter. But since we mentioned The Little Rascals, I took a look. It also has a 23% tomato meter, but a 70% audience score. So the movie going public liked Little Rascals more than it liked Airheads. So I'm going to put it to you because I know you've seen both, and it's probably been a while since we've watched Little Rascals. What's better? Because they both start off with the same tomato meter starting point at 23%. Who got it right?
Okay. I don't think that's a fair question. I think you're talking about apples to oranges and two completely different audience. I mean, Little Rascals, right, is like a family-friendly movie you can take the kids to.
I will say,
Airheads,
I think the Little Rascals
so
were
much.
smarter than Adam Sandler's character. Although Pip might have fit right in with the Rascals, I'm not quite sure.
You know what? I think Airheads has a niche audience, and I think that you have to know that going into it. Like, they had to know, making this film, that, you know, even when you look at music genres, right? Mm-hmm. Airheads and the whole, in this case, it was LA-based, an LA-based band,
LA
radio
based
station.
as Seattle is exploding.
But you have to absolutely love the little, like, nod to the Seattle music scene at the time, where Brendan Fraser's character, had said, "You actually listen to that Seattle bullshit." Like,
Which, for the record, Seattle was not bullshit. There were some bands that I could pass on from Seattle, but I mean, like any scene. I mean, you want to take a look at the Sunset Strip. There were bands we would definitely pass on from there, but there's also bands you also couldn't live without. But it is very much a movie of the time. Little Rascals is a movie of another time. It is. You're right. It's two very different movies. But let's take a look at Airheads, though. 23% tomato meter, 50% audience score. To you, who's right?
oh my God. I think absolutely the audience has spoken. And like I said, it's a niche audience. It's something that, we've gone to music festivals. Mm-hmm. Like the characters in this movie are legit. They are pretty much, what you would expect who you would expect to meet at a music festival.
And that's the thing, like, I'm in a band, you've known bands, like, we know these people. We do know these people.
I love it so much. Like the scene in the movie, I don't know if I can, fast forward to this, but the scene in the movie where the radio DJ, Ian, gives Brendan Fraser's character the mic, and he's like, so, what is it that you have to say? If you want to be heard, this is your chance. Here is your opportunity. This is your forum. This is, here's the mic, speak to your people. The audience is listening, and he's like, well, what do you want to say? And the answer was, I just want to be heard. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're listening. What do you have to say that what you want to share? I want to be heard. Okay. So moving on from that, and then his answer was just like, rock on. And it's like,
rock and roll. Oh my God, so Aussie.
So, you know what? I think that was actually, like, it was so perfect in that when you look at, the grunge era and arguably, whether it's goth or whatever, the era of music and time is like, it's representative of the disenfranchised youth who just want to be heard and they want people to understand them. But when given the platform to share their message, it's like, I just want to be heard.
When given the mic, actually say something. Okay, so let's get into the breakdown here. Okay, before we spoil too much, let's start with the acting. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you on this one here, so you can be heard. Who to you was good acting in Airheads?
Oh, I just want to be heard.
Rock and roll.
Oh my God. Okay. Where to begin? Chris Farley as the beat cop that
very much Chris
gets
Farley
thrown on the little side mission to track down Brendan Fraser's character, his girlfriend, Kayla. And the whole idea was to track down the only second recording of this song. Now, arguably, you would tend to think that there's 3 guys in the band. They should have each had a copy. I don't know. But anyway, so it was after the master tape
the reel to reel,
the
no
reel
less.
to reel gets damaged. The search begins for the cassette tape of the song, and so Chris Farley is sent into a club. I can't remember exactly if that's where White Zombie is playing at the Whiskey.
That's at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Okay, so he gets sent in, definitely out of his league, and has to take Kayla in to help her find this cassette. Anyway, absolutely friggin' perfect. It was,
I will say it's classic Chris Farley, but also a little bit more pulled back Chris Farley. It's almost like, and I'm going to mention this a little bit later about Adam Sandler, but I think Michael Lehman as a director did a very good job of letting them be themselves without being caricatures of themselves. It wasn't Chris Farley trying to be Chris Farley. It was just Chris Farley doing his best cop with a whole lot of, Farleyisms in it.
Was that maybe, though, the time that the movie came out, before his character as Chris Farley from SNL, before it was really established?
You can take a look at Michael Richards in very much his spaghetti man best, flopping around and all that. You think about Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld is already big at this point because it started in 1989. So we're 5 years into Kramer already. So Kramer is what you want him to be. But again, it wasn't like over the top Kramer. It wasn't stuttering manic Kramer. It was Michael Richards being a very physical comedian, perfect for that role. Adam Sandler had his little Sandlerisms coming out of this, but it was a way more subdued, pulled back, reined in, not Wedding Singer Adam Sandler, because let's be honest, Pip is a moron.
No, but Adam Sandler put on this voice. He changed his entire voice and mannerism for this role. He was almost overdone.
It was Billy Madison-esque, right? We know Adam Sandler can do comedic well when being directed by a good director. The Wedding Singer was a perfect example. Adam Sandler in The Wedding Singer was good. He was very good, and he was perfect for that role. But then you had, Happy Gilmore came out, and then you had Billy Madison, and it's almost like Sandler's characters got dumber and dumber and dumber. But most of those were in movies that he co-wrote, co-produced, like he was very heavily involved in the creation of those characters, and they felt like Saturday Night Live sketches that went on 90 minutes too long. With Pip in this movie, you still saw the Sandlerisms, the kooky dance and like the almost withdrawn, quiet, someone who's been beaten by way too many drumsticks kind of thing through the head. But it wasn't over the top. Adam Sandler didn't have that over the top performance because I think he knew, and I think the director probably knew that if you let guys like Farley, Sandler, and Richards go crazy, then you've lost the film and you've taken the focus away from the central storyline. So that's a good point for Michael Lehman.
I think, though, when you look at the three members of the band, when you look at Chaz, Brendan Fraser's character, Steve Buscemi as Rex, and Pip being his brother. Mm-hmm. Okay, Steve Buscemi, was just, he was like crazy. He was that, I don't know, like that, almost like a caged animal just waiting to be set free.
Well, he's a bassist.
And no, but
bassists are nuts.
You kind of think that when you look at the dynamic of the three of them, you've got Buscemi, who again is just certifiable, mm-hmm. and then you've got Pip, who if that's the dynamic in Their Brothers, right? That scene where Rex is like trying to I don't know, assert Pip, and you know, he gives him the gun, and he's, you know, practicing how he's going to take down the hostage or talk to the hostages. It's like, it's just that wonderful balance. And I think that Adam Sandler as Pip played it really well.
I will give it, though, that had Sandler stayed in that, you know, trying to assert himself mood, it would have gone straight down Sandler Road and Billy Madison way. And that would not have been good. Because again, the story is the key to this, and that's what mattered the most. I will agree. I'll agree with you wholeheartedly that Fraser and Buscemi were really, really good in this. The two of them together, I mean, I could see the three of them in a band. I really could. And I'm almost glad, we'll get to that in a second though, but I could easily see the three of these guys playing these, you know, crappy little shithole clubs, trying to get their music heard. The three of them made sense together. As a band, the three of them made sense together.
And I love at the end when they were finally like on a big stage and in front of the audience, and Sandler was the only one dressed up as a Lone Ranger. Like, he had the costume, and it was almost kind of perfect for his character. You know, everyone else has like the black t-shirt, band t-shirt, ripped jeans look, the long hair,
the rock and roll
uniform, and he shows up in a cape and a Zorro mask. Like, it's absolutely perfect.
Well, drummers are a special breed. We know this. We know this to be true. Michael McKean as, you know, the radio executive kind of thing. First of all, Michael McKean in anything, sign me up. You know, I love Spinal Tap. I think he was great in Spinal Tap. I think he's great in this. By the way, I now want a Lone Ranger's Spinal Tap tour. We need that to happen. But
yes,
Michael McKean just brought that level of, he's playing the character that you're supposed to hate. He's playing the character that's the authority figure. And he played it to perfection. Smarmy enough, sleazy enough, like, but not overtly. Again, I always think I prefer it when they're not overt, right? He was right in the pocket. He was absolutely right in the pocket. He's going to do what he needs to do. He's going to walk over what he needs to walk over. He's going to do it for himself. He doesn't give a damn about anybody else in the room or in the world, so long as he comes out on top. Michael McKean made that character hateable, which is hilarious when you think about how lovable of an actor Michael McKean is.
Absolutely. And you know what I really loved was, when you think about it, being from Spinal Tap and 11 being one more than 10.
Yes.
Right? Noise being a real factor. I love the quote that Ian, the radio DJ, said, "If it's too loud, you are too old."
Oh, God, yes.
And, you know, and that was directed right at Milo.
I do.
Michael McKean's character.
I do wonder, though, because you have Michael McKean from Spinal Tap, if Adam Sandler had any worries about spontaneously combusting or somehow meeting some fate, because we all know Spinal Tap drummers don't fare well. They don't. They have a habit of dying. So the fact that Pip made it through the whole movie alive, yeah, bravo to him. I also want to point out Joe Montana, Ian, the DJ. I know you like WKRP. I love WKRP. News Radio is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. There's something about the role of a radio DJ in a movie that I've always found fascinating. Maybe because, you know, working in radio would be cool. It would be fun. Montana plays this role well because, you know, he is literally he's still living the rock lifestyle, but he's also kind of tired of listening to the same new crappy bands that are coming out, and they're only getting deals because of X, Y, and Z kind of thing. He's like that classic rock DJ guy who just wants to be inspired by the music that he's hearing, and he's not inspired by it. He's all out of the fucks to give. He's completely zero fucks left to give.
Until he turns, that moment when he turns, and it was almost, I don't know if it was Stockholm syndrome or he
maybe a little bit, yeah.
He literally, as the movie goes on, and he gets them. He gets where they're coming from.
It's that damn the man attitude that a rock DJ is supposed to have. And finally, this band comes in, and they're very much damn the man with their what he thinks at the time are real Uzis, and all they want to do is be heard. All they want to do is have their music heard, and they don't give a shit about how it's being heard. For someone who, you have to think that Ian, the character, as a DJ, was probably DJing through the times of Zeppelin and Sabbath. He plays this like a DJ who's been through the wild days, like the crazy Van Halen days, the Motley Crue days, right? Especially in LA, right? You have to think of this guy, was a DJ and dealing with bands like Crue, through like the crazy Shout at the Devil, Theater of Pain, Girls days. Anything coming out that reeks of corporate is going to like turn his nose up. And here's a band that are taking matters into their own hands. They're literally, flipping middle fingers and Uzis at the man who probably, Ian, the character, hates him anyways. So it's like, all right, you're going to piss him off. I'm going to sit here, grab my popcorn, and let it happen. And that's pretty much it. As soon as he flicks it onto the air and starts asking them questions, that's literally the almost metaphorical, all right, popcorn's ready to go. Let's see what happens.
Well, let's be honest, a real catalyst for his change in attitude towards the Lone Rangers, because at first he was pretty condescending about their name, the Lone Rangers, and there's 3 of them, which was, quite a funny scene. But as the minute he finds out that KPPX, which is the rebel radio station that he's working for, he learns that there's a pending format change, that they're going to go to the
easy listening. When everyone sounds like this, and you're about to listen to the most mellow music of all time. It's Kenny G 24/7.
Right? But the cool thing about life imitating art is that the same scenario actually did happen in reality. In LA, actually, KNAC 105.5, 6 months later from the release of this movie, changed formats, went from, a heavy music station to, I believe it was like a, I don't know.
When you listen to a station, and that's got to be tough. This is the thing. Radio stations change format, not regularly, but often enough that, DJs need to be flexible. DJs, I'm going to flash back to WKRP, and Johnny Fever's mug that had all of his, fake DJ last names, my Johnny Sunshine now, my Johnny Nevada, and then Johnny Fever, right? DJs have to be able to pivot on a dime, when these things happen, because they get pigeonholed. They get associated with the music that they DJ if they've done it for a long time. So, if they're going to go from, hard rock, alternative rebel radio to Kenny G 24/7, you're not going to want to listen to someone who just told you that they were going to play music by the guy who bit a bat, the head off a bat, to now we're going to play, the pan flute of Zamfir. No, you can't. Listeners won't make that leap because it's going to be new listeners coming in, which, by the way, if you ever want to have fun, go from one day to the other and just see the whiplash of people listeners listening to a station that just went through a format change. It's fascinating. Also, I freaking love Ernie Hudson. I don't care what you put him in. Ernie Hudson is just always a treat. Now, Ernie Hudson played O'Malley, the cop that was kind of heading the point of, if Ernie Hudson sounds familiar, yes, I'm talking Ghostbusters guy. I'm talking Winston Zedmore here. You put Ernie Hudson in a cop uniform, and you just all of a sudden create this level of authority. And if Ghostbusters wasn't your bag, you remember him as the cop that would deal with Brandon Lee in The Crow. Now, as I'm going through his IMDb, and I'm like, okay, he played a cop here, and he played a cop here, and I went through his list. And by the way, Ernie Hudson's filmography is huge. So I did a brief, very non-scientific count of how many times Ernie Hudson has portrayed a law enforcement individual. And I'm counting detectives, I'm counting cops, I'm talking, FBI, judges. I left all the Army references out. So cops,
Do you
judges.
count Ghostbusters? Winston?
No, that wasn't a cop though. I'm talking.
No, but he's busting up ghosts.
Oh, yeah, hey, okay, that's great. If you're a ghost, then yeah. But no, I just went through.
Ghost police.
And if I saw, which Ghost Cops, no one's going to see that movie. Ghostbusters, hell's yes. But no, just went through the list of his roles, and counted the number of law enforcement individuals. 35 times. 35 times Ernie Hudson has been the strong arm of the law. So, right?
Wow, he's been in that many movies.
You should see his filmography. It's huge. 35 times. And again, I'm not even counting Army service roles here. 35 times to my count that Ernie Hudson has played law enforcement. So if you're putting a cop in a role, you really can't go wrong with Ernie Hudson. But the thing about him is that his voice, his screen presence, his demeanor, it's not the crazy cop. All right. It's not the cop that's going to take you out at the knees and leave you to die in the alley. Ernie Hudson brings this calm, stable, the cop that wants to diffuse the situation, make sure no one gets hurt.
He brought so much heart to this role.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like when they called in, was it, I guess, the FBI?
The SWAT or whatever. Yeah,
the SWAT team. Like, I felt bad for him. I was like, no, he's got this. And, considering that, the other side of it, that these three guys are literally, packing hot sauce in their toy machine guns. You feel totally bad. You're like, no, he has control of the situation. They're only messing things up. Although you gotta love that nice little connection there with the pool guy and Pip. That was definitely a motivator to take them down and make things worse.
But yeah, Ernie Hudson's always a gem on screen. Good. So you put him in the role, I'm pretty much all signed up. Now, have you got anyone else on your acting list?
Well, I just wanted to point out the matchup, the two Ghostbusters. You failed to mention
Harold Ramis.
That Egon was in this movie so briefly, and it was almost like you're watching it, and then he just kind of shows up and starts banging on the door, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? I will,
because we're talking acting, I want to, and the next part is talking about script and plot. I want to bring up the script part, okay? Because, Harold Ramis, Egon, right? He played a big role in one of my favorite script moments of the thing is when he gets there and they start giving him the quiz to see if he's a cop. Right. The first question is like, whose side did you take? Van Halen or Van Hagar? Right. This is that's one of those real sticking point questions for music fans. Seriously, anyone who's into rock music and you just sit there and go, okay, Van Halen or Van Hagar? Right. That just tells you right then and there who that person is, which, for the record, and I'm going to go on record as saying this, I'm pro Van Hagar. I fully admit, I thought that Van Halen was, as a band, better musically and songwriting wise with Sammy Hagar in the band. Does that make me, and that's the funny thing too, is, Harold Ramis's response eventually is Van Halen, he's a cop.
Right.
Right. And then the second one, God and Lemmy.
God.
Yeah. God and Lemmy get into a fight. Who wins?
Trick question.
Lemmy is God.
Right.
But,
and okay, Lemmy's appearance.
Right.
Mind blown. He was the high school newspaper or the high school yearbook editor. So,
right.
Yeah.
Which just screams geek all the way through. I will say that this movie is actually infinitely quotable. There's a lot of parts of the script where it's like, yeah, you could put a lot of these little script nuggets on a t-shirt. The whole Lemmy is God thing. That's just iconic now. Like that is literally, and God bless Lemmy. We miss Lemmy, we miss Motorhead, but like there's a lot of quotable things. There was one line that really kind of stuck out for me, and I want to read it verbatim here. It says, "I'm average and screwed up enough that I might just write a song that will live forever, and then it's all going to be worth it." That is literally the mantra, I think, of every band out there trying it, right? Average and screwed up enough that I might just write a song that will live forever, and then it's all going to be worth it. Anyone who's put a song to tape or CD, and it's true. If you're in an original band, all you want to do is those songs that you toiled over and wrote and recorded. You want someone to listen to them. The whole plot of this movie is based around the dream of, 6 strings in the truth, right? 6 strings in the truth. Write something that will, one song can change your life. One song can change your life only if people hear it. Right? So that the whole plot of the movie is based on a very simple premise and a whole lot of bad ideas along the way, but it makes it that much more fun.
Well, exactly. And I'm so glad that you had mentioned the bad ideas along the way, because I just have to give a nod to Anthrax's cover of the 87 Smiths London. And what the lyrics of the song is, "Do you think that you made the right decision this time?" When this entire movie is based on bad decisions and things going horribly wrong, plans going awry. They had a simple request. They had a simple goal. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to have their single heard, and they wanted a record deal. They wanted to get out there and the audience to listen. And yeah, it was just a series of unfortunate events after that.
Let this be a lesson to anyone who knows anyone who's trying to write original music. Listen to what they're doing, or they're going to make some bad choices and start taking hostages. That's pretty much what's going to happen if you know anyone who's not having their music heard. But I mean, I think as far as the plot and whatnot, I think it was really, really smart to have everything happen primarily in one location. It simplified the story. It simplified everything that happened, and it made the movie a lot easier to digest. The fact that it wasn't some big, everyone's all over the place. All of LA, they kept it tight. They kept it tight. They kept it centralized. And if you think about some of the movies around that time, the first one that comes to mind is Empire Records. Again, around that same, grunge alternative feel, primarily taking place at Empire Records, or even Clerks. When you think about Clerks, primarily it takes place at the Quickie Stop, right? No, the Quick Stop, not the Quickie Stop. I'm getting my Simpsons and Kevin Smith kind of mixed up here. But no, it happens primarily at the Quick Stop. It's a very, very self-contained comedy that is easy to kind of get around. Because yes, you can think, it makes the entire hostage situation and everything that happens, understandable in the night.
True. And can we also give a shout to the set dressing? There were so many hidden gems. If you watch, and I know that it took place in a radio station, but if you watch certain
posters,
scenes, there's exactly there's so many different bands, but most notably, did you notice as an Anthrax fan the little hidden Easter egg
on the magazine?
On the magazine, the 93
Anthrax actually on the cover. That's the thing too. Like this is John Bush era Anthrax. This isn't Joey Belladonna era. This is 1994. We're talking like Sound of White Noise. Like this, so this is Anthrax. If you're into Anthrax, which by the way, full plug. If you go to Made You a Mixtape, I get interviewed someone from a Scottish Anthrax band, and then go listen to Playlist Wars, where I actually get to talk with Brian and Gomez on that show, and we pick our favorite Anthrax songs. So, shameless self-promotion at its best, but that Sound of White Noise era for Anthrax was almost at their it's post Bring the Noise, yet still riding the popularity of Bring the Noise, MTV attention towards that. It's Headbangers Ball era. There's a lot in that radio station, and you could almost pull a Ready Player One and start pausing in different scenes and go, oh, there's an Offspring poster, and there's this poster, and there's that. That's
Spinal Tap.
Exactly. Well, I think that's probably because of Michael McKean,
the obituary sticker from their van. But not only that, but the scenes shot at the Whiskey with White Zombie playing on the stage. They pretty much kept it tight. But then I love too that the Whiskey A Go-Go,
iconic,
was so iconic to the LA scene. Not only that, but it was also Lemmy's favorite haunt. Mm-hmm. So it's just so perfectly tied together. I think
Lemmy's was the rainbow. Lemmy loved the rainbow. Whiskey A Go-Go was very much, Whiskey A Go-Go was where Motley Crue got big. Whiskey A Go-Go was where like Metallica, I think, played like one of their earliest shows as far as getting out there. The rainbow the rainbow was Lemmy. The Whiskey A Go-Go was pretty much everybody else.
You're right. My bad.
That's okay.
It was the Motley Crue. But also, I know that you had mentioned the writing on this. Mm-hmm. And I did just want to point out the connection between, Rich Wilkes or Wilkes.
Probably Wilkes.
Okay. He also, aside from being the writer on Triple X and Bulletproof 2, which was another Adam Sandler movie, The Dirt. The Motley Crue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's definitely, I think, that real connection.
That Sunset Strip kind of livid experience. Yeah.
Right.
I do wonder if they made that movie around the time of Saints of Los Angeles, the Motley Crue album.
Which it's 2019 for The Dirt.
Okay, but before that, though, and I think this was, I can't remember what year Saints of Los Angeles came out, but there's a song on that album called Down at the Whiskey. So I wonder if, whether they make that album around the same time as Saints of Los Angeles comes out. I wonder if it's Motley Crue on that stage playing that song, which would have been kind of cool.
I think too, it actually should have been or would have been Cannibal Corpse as the live act instead of White Zombie.
But they were in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which is why they weren't in. But I've got a list here of the bands that turned it down, including Testament and Metallica. Like that's huge. And yes, so Saints of Los Angeles was 2008. So, if Airheads was made around that time, they're not making Seattle jokes because Seattle's long gone. But yeah, I still think Motley Crue would play that song. But yeah, the fact that Metallica, which I understand Metallica turning that down because we're talking 1994, we're, on the heels of the Black Album. Like Metallica is freaking huge at this point. I think after 2.5 years of touring on the Black Album, they just wanted to rest and get ready to make the next album. But Testament was one that kind of stuck out to me because, of course, Testament's drummer at the time, if I remember correctly, was John Tempestra, who would actually go on to play with White Zombie. Before White Zombie broke up and then Rob Zombie went solo. So, all the musical connections there. But yeah, it did surprise me that Testament was in consideration. The Cannibal Corpse thing, the fact that apparently Cannibal Corpse was like the producer's favorite band, I'll admit I'm not a Cannibal Corpse fan. I've never actually listened to them. I don't dislike them because I just never really listened to them. But, the fact that, because of freaking Ace Ventura, Cannibal Corpse didn't get to be in Airheads, probably good on Cannibal Corpse. I think they chose the better movie to be in because, of course, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective was huge, and Airheads is being talked about on this show. So
I think that was a blessing in disguise on both parts. But yeah, one question that I had though, and I watched the movie twice to prepare for this, but Tom Araya, the bassist of Slayer, was credited or listed on Airheads, yet I am not sure of the connection.
I'd have to go back and take a look. I really would. That one's news to me, and I'm not quite sure why it's there. But since we're talking music, we got to talk the soundtrack here. And as every good 90s movies at the time, good soundtracks were like, the 90s was the era of the soundtrack. Let's be honest, right? I mentioned Empire Records. And then you got singles, right? And then you had so many good, like you could list the Tank Girl soundtrack was phenomenal. There were so many good 90s era soundtracks. The Last Action Hero, horrible movie. We'll probably talk about that movie eventually at some point, but horrible movie, phenomenal soundtrack. The Adventures of Ford Fairlane with frickin' Andrew Dice Clay, horrible movie, great soundtrack. Like, there's a lot of great soundtracks out there. This is one of those soundtracks where it's a good soundtrack, and yeah, the movie's not that bad either. But let's go through some of the very, 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 very 90s references on this soundtrack here. You got 4 Non-Blondes on there, actually covering Van Halen. You got House of Pain. You got White Zombie, Anthrax, Candlebox, Primus. I mean, Anthrax and Candlebox, that's 2 of my favorite bands of all time right there to begin with. Shout out to Anthrax and Candlebox. But, again, 4 Non-Blondes, House of Pain, Primus, like these are 90s staples. These were the bands that really helped make the 90s the phenomenal decade of music that it was. And the soundtrack, the score itself, take it or leave it. But the soundtrack, and that's just so 90s to have a good rock soundtrack accompanying the movie.
Aside from Born to Raise Hell, which I thought was brilliant, the usage of it, but you had mentioned take it or leave the score. I thought that was a real driving part. Like, it was really notable, and I thought that it was very clever and very well used. Just the kind of the background transitioning from one scene to another, like it added a little something, and it was definitely noticeable.
You know what? You mentioned the Motorhead song, Born to Raise Hell, and it was a re-record of, Motorhead's original recording of it.
Ice-T and...
with Ice-T and Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a fan of this version of the song. Like, as cool as it is to have Ice-T and Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe up there with Lemmy doing Born to Raise Hell, I preferred the original as found on Motorhead's Bastards CD. First of all, Motorhead's Bastards CD, pound for pound, song for song, one of Motorhead's best front to back albums. Personal opinion, go ahead and at me on this one. I'll stand by that CD. Absolutely. But there was just something about the re-record with the guest appearances. I liked the song to begin with. You didn't need to make it any better. You know, you got Lemmy up there. You don't need it anymore. But I get that because, you know, again, 1994, Ugly Kid Joe is all over the place, right? You think about, I Hate Everything About You. And then, you know, they had, what was the cover that they did? Cats in the Cradle.
Oh, yes.
Cats in the Cradle. Like, they were MTV Gold at that point in time. And Ice-T is just freaking Ice-T, right? Ice-T, like, you don't even have to, like, point to anything. Just Ice-T is just cool as shit, right? Pun fully intended. Ice-T is cool as shit. But Ugly Kid Joe at the time were huge. And to have them on the soundtrack with Lemmy, I get it. I just prefer the original. Yeah, I know. It's a bold statement.
No, you know
bold
what?
Statement. I mean, so Star Wars over Masters of the Universe over Star Wars, you know, kind of bold statement, but
I approve of that
I'm
message.
never letting you go never letting that go.
Well, I'm back on the mic, so you must forgive me.
Because you want to be heard.
I want to be heard. Rock and roll.
But it is one of those soundtracks that, you know, if you're looking for good tunes, go ahead, pick it up. Like it's worthy of having in your collection. It's actually one of those CDs I wish I had in my collection. Like, when you point to the 90s soundtracks, yes, Singles comes up. Last Action Hero comes up. Empire Records comes up. So many good 90s soundtracks pop up. This isn't the first one that comes to mind, but if you get your hands on it, you're never letting it go. I want to talk, though. I want to talk real. Some real talk here. Can we talk about the physics-defying helicopter that's carrying an entire stage as it flies in?
Not only that, but, you know, complete with drum set and rig and everything preset.
Like, I know what it takes to put a stage up.
You've never done it from the air before.
No. First of all, who's got a stage ready to go that fast that can be flown in by a helicopter? One helicopter.
1 hour and 34 minutes. This movie was 1 hour, 34 minutes. Somewhere around the hour mark, they decided, oh no, we need to get the stage.
Like, what do they do? Like fly down to Burbank, say Jay Leno's not going to need the stage. Let's just pick it up and bring it over to Nakatomi Plaza. Like, seriously? I get it. You know, for time's sake, they needed to do this, but it's just one of those moments where you sit there and go, well, that's impossible. Like, the rigging alone would collapse in on itself. You are endangering the lives of Los Angelinos everywhere by doing your best to try the impossible with one helicopter and a ready to rock stage. It's not happening. It's way over the top. Funny as hell, but
I think there's a whole lot of, you know, you have to suspend a whole lot of disbelief to follow this movie. I mean, first of all, a band walking into a radio station to have their single heard. And like I said, the fact that they would only have a master and then one cassette copy in existence of their song.
I will argue that one.
Is it real?
It is. You would be surprised how many original bands out there no longer have the masters of their albums.
We've been to LA and Venice Beach, and there are people on every street corner handing out their CD singles.
Okay, but that's CD where you can have we're talking 1994, like, first of all, it was recorded on reel-to-reel, so I can just imagine the crappy little studio that the Lone Rangers actually recorded their song in. And it's like one of those dinky little reel-to-reels. It's not even like the full 24-track master. We're talking like, you know,
it's almost like the 3/4 version.
Oh, good. Yeah, but it was so thin. Like, you're not getting 24 tracks on that album. That's literally... It literally looks like they had a reel-to-reel machine in their garage and they stuck one microphone in the middle of the room, and that's how they recorded their demo, which, if that's the case, that is one damn good microphone because it sounded pretty damn good when they actually got to play it a little bit. But, yeah, there's something about like that age and bands not having the masters of the albums that they made. It is actually a thing. I'm not surprised, especially when you consider like how down on their luck, how, you've got your bassist working at a toy store and bringing home all the defective toys, or at least to get rid of toys. You've got, Pip the pool man, who is also apparently Pip the porno star because he can pretty much pick up anybody. And then you've got, Chaz, the D&D playing, Chester, who's not working, and all he's doing is like, trying to sneak into record companies to get his music heard. I'm not surprised that they only had like, one cassette and like one reel to reel of the song.
It's the rock and roll life. But again, in reality, if they want to play shows and they want to build an audience and a following, they're going to need to make more than one cassette copy.
They might need to, but given the combined IQ of a carrot between the three of the characters, I'm not surprised.
And maybe some T-shirts and some swag as well.
Which, of course, their T-shirts would literally be like a white T-shirt with the Lone Ranger's handwritten on it. That's pretty much what their merch would probably be at the time. Okay, it's time. It's time to name our MVPs. So, Carrie, I hand the conch over to you here. Who is your MVP of 1994's Airheads?
Butt Munch.
Oh, God.
Beavis and Butthead. You have completely overlooked the fact that Mike Judd placed a phone call to the radio station, and Beavis and Butthead made an appearance. And what I was desperately trying to find out, and maybe your listeners can, if they've found proof to this, but I want to know if the other side of this phone call actually made an appearance in season 4 or 5, which came out around the same time.
You do realize you're now asking our dear listeners, all three of them, to,
I want to know.
Okay.
Inquiring minds.
So dear internet, hold on. Dear internet, it would be a great help if you would sit down and watch the entirety of the Beavis and Butthead filmography so you could answer this question for us. It says, sincerely signed, it's not that bad. That's not.
I'm not asking for the whole season.
No, you got to watch the whole thing.
Roughly around, when did it come out? April or?
Let me take a look at my notes here. At my handy dandy notes, I did mention it.
I wasn't paying attention.
I completely forgot that I mentioned it, but I've got it written down here. August.
It was August of 1994.
Yes.
So whatever, wherever that falls in line with, probably I would think at that point, season 5.
The Beavis and Butthead verse.
Yes. I want to know. I tried to find it on my own, and I came up short.
Settle down, will you? I'm not going to do the Bungholio because, it's late at night and I don't want to wake anybody up. But, okay, so aside from Beavis and Butthead, who are your MVPs of Airhead?
Okay, Chaz's batshit crazy girlfriend, Kayla. Man, that chick can throw a punch.
And a
Respect.
chair. And
a chair. And yeah, I mean, watching the dynamic in their relationship, it made everything make so much sense. Poor Brendan Fraser's character, Chaz, I feel for him. I feel really bad for him. It's almost like I wanted to see him hook up with Christina Applegate because
that would have been safer.
It would have been safer, yeah.
I will point out that to that point, had this film come out around the same time as How I Met Your Mother, then Chaz could have leaned on the Barney Stinson, hot crazy scale, right? There's that graph, right? So the character's hotness is directly equated to their batshit craziness, and no,
she really was perfect though for the role. Oh my god!
And that's the thing, clearly they had Christina Applegate in mind. They didn't get Christina Applegate. They got the next best thing, and she did. She owned that role. She gave Kayla the manicness that she needed,
She had the perfect hair for it too.
Oh,
The 80s rocker hair. Like, I know it was in the 90s.
The
but
Sunset Strip hair. Very
yes.
much so, yes.
Yes.
I, you know what? As good as she was in that role, she was not my MVP. For that, I got a tie. And it's Brendan Fraser and it's Steve Buscemi.
Oh, yes.
And I don't think Buscemi, Buscemi's a very, very good actor. And he gets thrown into a lot of very serious roles. But he also gets thrown into a lot of good comedic roles. And I don't know if Buscemi gets the credit he deserves for being a very good comedic actor. Because he knows when to bring the crazy. He knows when to bring the silly. He knows when to bring the absurd. Buscemi is an actor. He does. He deserves a lot of credit. And Brendan Fraser, you have to remember that this is pre-Mummy Brendan Fraser, right? This isn't, Brendan Fraser at peak Brendan Fraser. This is still on the come up as far as the career goes. And there's just something so likable about Chaz. In all of Chaz's very wrongness, there is something right there. And I don't think you get that kind of connection with this character who's just dumb as, smart like Hammer.
Oh, Pip.
Oh, no, not Pip. Pip was Adam Sandler. But Chaz, actually everyone in the band, everyone in the band is smart like Hammer at this point. But I don't think the audience connects with Chaz if it's not for an actor like Brendan Fraser to be able to, bring just a humble sense of hope. Because that's Chaz is hope. Chaz is, everyone's dream manifested into this long-haired, leather jacket-wearing idiot who's got a hot sauce-filled toy Uzi taking hostages just to be heard. There's a strange hope in that, and if it's not Brendan Fraser in that role, the movie isn't as good as it is.
But now I'm thinking back to when the Uzis came out of the bag, right? Wasn't it?
It was
Buscemi that led the charge on that. I think, had Chaz had the conviction to be more of a leader, that I think this movie wouldn't have nearly gone as awry as it did. And I really,
the thing is, Chaz isn't crazy.
He's not.
Chaz isn't crazy. Chaz has got a plan, right? Rex is cray.
He has a goal. He has no plan.
You're right.
He doesn't know how to get there.
I stand corrected.
He has an idea of where he wants to get to.
We're arguing semantics on who's crazier,
but no plan to how to get there.
But it's true. Rex is a few screws loose, right? Rex is the one that needs to pull out the Uzi. Chaz is every musician who's ever put something out there and is feeling it because no one seems to pay attention to something that he puts his whole heart into.
He's so likable.
Oh.
However, the scene where he goes out to not confront, but he goes out to speak with the cop, the
Ernie Hudson, O'Malley.
Yeah, right. So he goes outside and he's chatting with him, and then proceeds to jump on top of, I don't know, a bench or whatever it was that he jumped on top of, and riled up the crowd. In reality, that would get him shot. That was
pretty much
maybe not the best thought out plan, and you can tell that he is very.
But to the same token as well,
he acts without thinking.
He's feeding off people finally paying attention, people finally listening to him. For someone who just wants to be heard, And again, there's just something infinitely likable about Brendan Fraser. There is. Yeah. Any role Brendan Fraser takes, even when he's playing a character you're not supposed to like, there's still something infinitely likable about Brendan Fraser.
And side note, I've been reading actually a lot of recent articles about the internet hating on Brendan Fraser because he's been posting.
Well, it's because the internet sucks.
Pictures. You know what? Let's get over it. It's, post-COVID and everyone's been in lockdown for almost 2 years.
And that's the
give
thing.
the guy a break.
Exactly. First of all, the internet sucks.
Leave
the
Brendan
internet can
Fraser
suck
and Britney
hardcore.
Spears alone.
The only time the internet's going to be good is if they actually watch every Beavis and Butthead episode to answer your question. But, but Brendan Fraser, again, he just comes across as the nicest guy. And like I said, this movie doesn't work if Brendan Fraser isn't as likable as he is. So kudos to Brendan Fraser and Steve Buscemi for, being my MVPs of Airheads. So hindsight with all of this, is Airheads not that bad?
Oh my God, it's the greatest movie, I think, from that. Oh, that's a big statement. But
there's a bold statement.
It is so absolutely perfect for the genre, for the time, the music, the characters, the actors in the movie. Mm-hmm. I love this movie, and I think that it is not just not that bad, but it is a freaking amazing movie.
So the critics are wrong, and the rest of the audience need to catch up because half the people are right, half the people need to go back, rewatch it, and appreciate everything that's in there. Carrie, thank you so much for coming back onto the show. You do realize next time I get to pick the movie.
Thank you for having me back, even after my Star Wars blunder.
Not blunder, just opinion.
Right, exactly.
A completely wrong opinion, but an opinion nevertheless.
Someone on the internet is wrong.
and it's my wife. Okay, and to the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Now, here's the deal. We want to know what movies you think we should be talking about. So, if you think there's a movie that is unfairly maligned, or if you think there's a movie that there's no way in hell that we can watch it and find something good to say about it, and you just want to torment us and make us watch the movie, we're good either way. Just let us know. So hit us up on Twitter @NotThatBadCast. Toss the movie out there. We'll watch it. We'll review it. We'll find only the good things, and then we'll make a show about it. So until next time, I'm Jason. Thank you so much, Carrie. This is It's Not That Bad. So enjoy the movies.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, Skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.